You don't get marks for studying. You get marks for producing exam standard answers.
I'm about to show you my actual marking transcripts from uni. What matters here isn't the number, it's what changed to make the numbers possible. So listen carefully to this part. So I wanted to show you how different my marks look before I applied these principles and after I applied them, okay? So in my final semester of my final year, you can see after I implement my new study strategies, I'm getting amazing percentages. And before, again, not getting very bad, but definitely nowhere near as amazing as the second lot. And then, of course, I got the prize for ranking first. So if that isn't enough evidence, I don't know what is. Quick note, this is a long-form, minimally edited explanation. If that's what you're here for, then stay with me. This is built for students who actually want to understand how marks are earned and know that focusing here is part of the skill.
You're studying for hours, late nights, early mornings, yet your grades haven't moved past 60% for months. You're not lazy. You're just optimizing for the time spent instead of the marks gained. And that feels even worse than being lazy because it feels productive, but it's quietly capping all your marks. Okay, well, you might be thinking, who am I? I've seen this from both sides, both as a tutor and as a graduate who ranked first at my university. The students who struggle aren't always the ones who don't work. They're the ones who work hard on the wrong thing. Things that don't pay them marks. In other words, the return on investment sucks. And I've been there. And once I finally figured out what the right key for the lock was, I was able to gain the highest marks across my exams in my graduating year group. And so can you, and it will feel so easy. Today, I'm going to show you why that happens and the 2 key principles that can help us. Most students focus on inputs instead of outputs. They're maximizing things like hours studied, pages covered, or notes rewritten, which is by far the worst one. But exams don't reward any of that stuff. The annoying but sad reality is that you do not get marks for studying. You literally get marks for producing exam standard answers under the constraints given. If effort alone worked, everybody who studied long hours would get top grades. But you and I both know they do not. Because exams are not a knowledge test. They are a rule-based scoring system. They're a game. It's a game. And we all love games. So, principle 1, which has to be the most important principle ever, and that is marks. Marks. Marks are 1,000 million times more important than hours. We've got student A. Let's call them Ron, Janet. Okay, so Ron and Janet both sit down on Monday evening to get done 3 hours of studying. Okay, they're both studying for 3 hours. Okay, Ron decides to do 2 hours of rewriting notes because his notes in class are kind of messy, a little bit incomplete, and he's not happy with them. Okay, and he spends another hour rereading both his notes and some textbook pages that they were assigned. Janet, meanwhile, decides to do 20 minutes mapping out the mark scheme. So she's seeing, what kind of things I'm doing in the mark scheme, and how can I use this to inform my studies? Then she does 2 hours of timed questions. And lastly, she does 40 minutes of fixing her mistakes that she made in the questions, and of course by referring to the mark scheme. I again emphasize that they are both doing the exact same number of hours of studying. But who do you think is more likely to have better understood the material, better understood the mark scheme specifically, and therefore more likely to perform better on exams? Well, it doesn't take a genius to know that it will be Janet, because she knows the rules of the game. Ron is feeling productive, actually performing productively because he is just doing things that do not gain him marks. Janet is figuring out the mark scheme. She's practicing the questions that will come up in the test. And then she is reviewing her mistakes to make sure that she does not make the same exact mistakes again in the exam. So she is much better off than poor Ron. Same time, completely different outputs, and so completely different grades. Okay, so this concept here, I'm just going to highlight in red. So marks per hour is way more important than hours per day, okay? Hours per day. So Janet can just do this and call it a day, but Ron's going to find himself doing the exact same tasks on repeat, but for 6, 7, 8 hours to make it feel like he's getting anywhere. Whereas Janet's done. She's done her studying for the day and she's all happy. She's going to go and have fun with her friends now. Okay, high achieving students do not study more. They just get more marks per hour. Okay, and it all starts obviously with your revision. So the important bit here is that if your study plan does not reference marks like Ron here, it's incomplete. It literally is not going to get you anywhere. You can work hard all semester like Ron is doing, but if your outputs don't match what the exam requires, you're going to be stuck at 60%. Okay, Ron is stuck at 60%. Poor Ron. But Janet, she is an overachiever. She's getting 90% plus. Not getting it by accident. It's because her studying technique and methods are also, they're exam optimized, because that's what we have to be doing here. It's like playing a game without knowing the rules. Like if you're playing chess, okay, now let's just have the pawn here, and then you've got another pawn here, and then you've got the knight. Okay. And you're trying to play chess. You have genuinely no clue how to move the pieces. You've never read anything about the game. You've never even heard of the game before. Okay. But someone just says, hey, let's play a game of chess. So you're like, okay, cool. And so you're sitting there, you're moving your pawn here, you're moving your knight here, just literally by how you feel, not based on any rules. Your opponent, obviously, given that they know the rules, is sure to win you because they know the rules and you do not. And everybody knows that moving the pieces around randomly is a ridiculous strategy. And the exact same thing applies for studying. So remember, your strategy should be 100% based on the mark scheme or the specs or whatever info that you have been provided about your exams. So uni level is a little bit more vague sometimes because you do not have like GCSE specifications, A-level specifications, and even your exams, past papers are not as abundant, I suppose. But still, the same thing applies. If you know the type of questions that your lecturer will ask you and how to answer those questions, you're sure to pass those exams with flying colours.
If this video has been useful to you so far, especially if it's clarified why your effort hasn't been converting into marks, then consider giving this video a like, because it really helps me know that this kind of content is worth making.
Principle 2, equally as important, is active recall, but not just active recall. Everybody knows about active recall, but that combined with feedback loops. So everyone tells you to use active recall. Okay, everyone's like, yeah, use active recall. You can't just kind of sit around and read notes as Ron is doing. Janet's using active recall. And just as a quick review, active recall is when you're forcing your brain to remember rather than rereading and recognizing information and not actually committing it to memory. Okay, not being able to give the answer with a very vague prompt as opposed to just reading stuff and thinking, hey, I know this. Active recall, okay, if you leave out feedback loops, is literally like getting faster and better at the wrong things. I'll give you another example. So we have Harry. I think I'm going with a Harry Potter theme with a Harry and Ron. You've got Harry, okay? He is studying 50 flashcards a day. Okay, flashcards are amazing for active recall, by the way. Flashcards, okay, per day. Which is great, that's awesome. Everyone would say 50 flashcards a day leading up to exams is amazing, okay? But he never has once checked whether the answers are correct on his flashcards. Which seems very silly because you're thinking, well, obviously the answers are going to be correct, but that's not always the case because your answer might technically be correct, given that general context, but will it score full marks in your exam? And if not, why are you reviewing that information in that manner? If it doesn't score full marks or close to full marks in the exam, and you're reviewing so many flashcards a day, it is near useless. So you need to make sure that the answers or the information you've popped on your flashcards are actually useful in terms of solving exam questions and getting full marks, or as close to full marks as is possible. Recognition feels great. Recognition feels amazing. Like, hey, I know this. I am a star. I'm going to pass the exams. And everyone's going to be like, wow, I'm so cool. But exams punish recognition. Because if you just know something because you recognize it and not because you can literally drag it out of your head unprompted, you don't know it. So therefore, exams will show you that you do not know it. And to break past that, this whole active recall without checking that the answers are correct, or being, again, correct here, I'm talking about will be awarded marks in an exam. To break past that, you need feedback loops. You need a lovely feedback loop. And that is what real learning looks like, okay? So the feedback loop looks like this. Test. Okay, so you test your knowledge, your information, either by yourself or in an exam or whatever. You fail some areas, hopefully not the whole test. Then you fix what you failed, okay? Sort of how Janet was doing. She's done 2 hours of timed questions. She's done 40 minutes of fixing the mistake. Probably learn is probably a better thing to begin with. So you learn, you test yourself, the questions, you fail. So she must have failed some. And then you fix. So 40 minutes of fixing the mistakes. And then you repeat this process. Okay? Fixing and learning kind of go hand in hand. So I'm just going to do a arrow like that. So you're not just doing repetition, you're doing correction, specifically iteration. You're seeing what's gone wrong, fixing it, and then repeating. Not just repeating the same thing again and again and again. So these are the key principles.
If your goal is to become a genuinely exceptional student, this is exactly what I post here. If you enjoyed this video, you can follow for more and check out this new video that tells you exactly what not to do in your study sessions to make sure that they are as effective as possible each time.